Well, hello, friends, and welcome back. Say, today I'm finally getting around to reviewing the Speaker's Corner, the Blue Oyster Cult records that I've got. And, there's been some changes that I have made in my stereo. And when I've got six different records that I was comparing. I've got three of the Secret Treaties, and I've got three of the Tyranny and Mutation. And comparing all those records, it wasn't a blowout at all. I mean, yeah. So I had to do some listening and really to find out what the differences, the nuances were with all these records. And one of the reasons, or the reason basically, I bought these Speakers Corners records was because, I've still got the shrink on there, especially on this one here. And what it says on here is that they make them from the original analog master, and they're pure analog audiophile mastering. They're pressed at Palace, Germany. Uh, so yeah, I mean they do a good job, and they do have what you call analog delay on their tape machines. They don't have digital delay, and they had made a big point of that in their literature. And I talked about that earlier because we talked about, well, what is digital delay? Um, Now, and they also use the Newman lays, like Sterling Sound and at Coherent Audio, uh, Kevin Gray. They use all the Newman. So they're doing all the things that, they're really, what the records that we love, those places that do good mastering, they're doing the same thing that those other places do, like Sterling and Coherent. And they want to have the original master tape, and they got to use a tape machine now that doesn't have digital delay. All the modern tape machines that those big tape machines that they use to play back to make, well, CDs basically, because once what they say is, once you use that digital delay, it takes, because when you're mastering, there's a delay involved so that you can get the spacing and you can do things. You've got a little bit of delay before it actually gets put on the lacquer. So if you have a digital delay, according to these folks now, you've got a digital recording. So they're saying you cannot use a digital delay machine like the big record companies have. That's why they're making digital records. That's one of the reasons they're making digital records. So anyway, Speaker's Corner. Yeah, these are still in print too. And I looked at, they're still available. You can get them on the big, retailers, the discounters and stuff. You can get them. They're still available, and they have got a lot of issues out. There's a lot of records out. There's a couple of the Johnny Winter records that I don't actually have, that are Hartkins, the really early ones, and so I'd be interested in getting a couple of those to see how those sound too. That would be interesting, and of course they got a bunch of jazz titles. Of course, they're big on classical music because that's what audiophile music, to a lot of people is. So anyway, how did all this stuff stack up, and what did I compare? Okay, well, first of all, this was the first one that they issued. Speaker's Corner issued Secret Treaties first, and this is the original USA pressing. It's not a shiny cover. It's like a textured cover. It kind of reminds me of like a wedding invitation, the kind of texture, the kind of paper, the high quality paper that they use on that. And here's the original inner sleeve. Came with the record. And of course the record in there. And this is, I was surprised because I still have it in my collection because of all of the record stores that I went to in my day. Now, I really didn't search on eBay a lot for this, but back in the day when I would go to all the cities that I went to, I'd go to all the record stores and search for records. This is the only one I ever found like this first edition, and I found it in probably about 92, 91 in Jacksonville, Florida is where I found it. And it is a phenomenal sounding record. It really is. It isn't as good as the other two that I compared it to, but it's very close. If you've got this and you're saying, well, should I buy the Speaker's Corner record? We'll get into that, but it's not an absolute must. I wouldn't say it is, no. Then the next one that I listened to was the original Japanese recording, pressing. And what they did, they've got a nice, this is not shiny either. This is they tried to reproduce this as best as they could. It's not quite as textured, but it's very nice. Did a very good job on the cover. And it's very thick. I'd say that the Japanese is thicker than the USA First Press. The Japanese has a real thick cover on it. And they don't have a inner sleeve like that because, you know, the Japanese, they don't use this type of paper for inner sleeves. So they took it and they made, of course, their lyric book out of it, which is a nice. And then, of course, I'll show you the label. It's on the CBS Sony label, 1973. That's the first edition. And then on the Speaker's Corner, they just got an insert they put in with this on one side and that on the other. And it's on real high quality, shiny, thick paper. It's really nice. So I really like that. And then, of course, they've got a nice polyline inner sleeve. So the best sounding one of the bunch is the Speaker's Corner. And why is it? What makes this sound better? Well, for one thing, what you notice, it's got more punch. Now, you have to listen for all these things because it's not like you drop the needle and bam, it just all the music's exploding. But one of the other things I found on this record, I'm hearing a lot of organ that I never heard before. Because, you know, I know these records. I've listened to these records. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, back in the day, high school, I listened to these records over and over and over again. And I had the Canadian pressings at the time, which were awful. They really were. They didn't sound good at all. And I got one, you know, now this one, getting back to this one, that organ. I'm hearing a lot of organ that I never knew was on the record before. It really is prominent on here because of a lot of the transients that are on this record that aren't on the other ones. And some of that harmonic information is on this. Is what they're able to do now with a modern reissue. That they've got the master tape and they're not putting any EQ on the high end and they're just trying to get a faithful reproduction from that tape. So what I really liked about these Speaker's Corners records was I put it on, and another thing too, there's more separation on the voices, you know, because there's a lot of singing on the record, of course, and there's a lot of times you've got, you know, Buck Dharma and Eric Bloom, they're both singing at the same time. And you can really hear more air around their voices, more separation on the voices. And that Eric's rhythm guitar, a lot of times, it's got a little bit more of that nasty edge, that transient edge to it. It makes it more gives it more drive. And it just sounds a little nastier. It sounds really good. That's what I like. It made me like it better. And I just found, listening to it, it sounded a little cleaner. It did. Because of the modern technology and how they can make these records now, if you get the master tape and you do it properly, like Analog Productions does. You know what I'm talking about, how they make these records. It sounds really good. Now, what about the Japanese version? Again, like that record, now the record from Speaker's Corner again, these are pressed in Palace, Germany. These are pressed in Japan on the JVC Super Vinyl. And that Palace record is just as quiet as this one. It is. It's really good pressing, really quiet record. This has a lot of nice detail in the upper end. Not in some of the cymbals, I could hear the stick a lot better, a lot of the shimmer better, but some of that bronze of the cymbal was missing a little bit. You know, that's what they're able to get now in some of these recordings nowadays. They're getting a little bit more, you're hearing a little bit more of the cymbal. But very minute things are missing that are on that one. And of course, a little bit of that bass punch is missing. This has got a lot of good bass on it. When you compare the original pressing to the Japanese pressing, that's when you hear that the high end it sounds a little bit better on the Japanese issue. This one has a little bit more bass, but I don't really notice it because I'm concentrating on all of them singing and the guitars and all that. And you know, Blue Oyster Cult doesn't have big punchy bass lines anyway, but I do appreciate that little bit extra bottom that comes with this one. And so what I found myself doing a lot of the time, when I put this Speaker's Corner record on, I really enjoyed listening to it so much. I said that, well, the heck with putting another one on. I'm just going to listen to this. And I'd listen to the next song, and I'd get a big smile on my face. And I'd start, you know, air guitar and go to the next song, and just, man, I haven't heard this for a while, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't even want to take it off. I just want to keep listening. I don't even care about comparing the records anymore. I'm just enjoying listening to the record so much. And it is better, but all these records that I've got, they all sound phenomenal. They all do. This is a great sound. This Speaker's Corner is great. This first edition is a good sounding record. But it does have a little bit more of a grain, and a little more, you can't say it's muddy, but you know, it's not crystal clear. Let's just put it that way. It's really clear, but it's not crystal clear as like this one is. Not that this one is crystal clear, but it's more on that, a little bit more of it. See, because we're all just, you know, I'm not really splitting hairs, but if I was, they're pretty thick hairs, but I'm still splitting hairs, right? Okay, the same goes for Tyranny and Mutation. When I compared it to the first edition Japanese press, now the first edition Japanese press has what you call a cap OB. When they don't have that band around there, it's a cap OB. And I compared it to, take it out of the sleeve. This is a 1973 first edition Holland press. Now, I don't know if many of you folks have records that were pressed in Holland, but they make some really, really good records. This is the CBS Sony plant in Holland, and they make fantastic records. And of all of the records, this was probably the more average sounding, the one from Holland. But it's better than the original Canadian presses, which is the one I think I had before. It's better than that. But the cymbals are a little bright, and the bass is a little more bloated, and of course the singing, the voices are not as distinct. But it does sound good. I mean, it's not a bad sounding record. But of all the records, of all the six records, this was the least audiophile sounding. Let's just put it that way. Again, this was a really, really good sounding record, but it's basically exactly the same thing happened between the two. This one has a little more punch to it, a little bit more bass. You notice it on certain notes where it's a bit lower, and you hear that where it's missing on these other records. And just the clarity. It does have more clarity to the music, and there's more definition around the. You got a little more of that transience on the guitars, a little bit better, but not a lot now. But that will be, I guess, my review. I think I made my point on the records. They're all really good records. Even that first edition U.S. press, that really surprised me how good it really sounded. And that's kind of why it took me a while to make the review, because I'm listening and I'm listening and I'm like, what in the world? What's the differences? You know, why does this one sound so much similar to the other records? How can that U.S. press sound similar to the Speaker's Corner record? It shouldn't, you know, because of the technology of the day, but it doesn't have the fidelity that this one has. But it's close. So do you need to run out and get it? Well, if you don't have one, if you don't have these records at all, they're still available. I looked on one of the wholesalers. You know, there's like 3 that I go to a lot, and I just picked one and looked, and they had, I think they had their whole Speaker's Corner catalog, and they're on there, and it was available because it says on Speaker's Corner's website it's in stock. Both these records are available. They're in stock. And I bought them off of eBay. I didn't look around a lot. And there are guys going, last one, last one. So man, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna miss out. I'm not gonna be able to buy them. They're limited quantity. You know, you get all confused with all these things all the time. And so, you know, you buy it because you think you're not gonna be able to get it. But they're still available. And they're not real expensive compared to, because these are old records. Try to get a mint copy of any of these things, even a domestic one. You'll have to search a lot. And the nice thing about it, it's all analog, and they sound really nice, and they're quiet and everything else. Everything we want in a record, there's that. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave some comments and let me know what you think. And I appreciate you all watching. Bye for now.